I think that's so important because, for myself, but we're always looking out ahead, like, oh, when I get this promotion, or when I'm doing this, or when I get married, or when I have kids, or when I, making X amount of money, then I can be happy. Or even in our, you know, callings, like you said, it's like, oh, like I'm ready to go do the big thing. And God, a lot of times in the Bible, is saying, just wait. And I think it was Jim Elliot who said, wherever you are, be all there. And that's a hard thing to do because, like I said, we're constantly waiting in life. And patience is not one of my virtues. But
I have so few of those, sire. I wouldn't worry in particular about that one.
That one. Yes. But yeah, I think that's so important. And I think what that requires, like you just said, is it requires trust and faith. That I think as we get older, then you can start seeing in your own story, wow, I can see how God brought me through that time that I thought I'd never get out of. Or I can see now how he, like, if I had known then what he would have me doing now, I would have run away. And I don't know if you ever read or heard this. I think it's Unbreakable. I can't remember his name, but he was, and his plane gets shot down and they're on the raft and they're fighting off sharks. And he said, if we had known what was coming next, we would have gladly let the sharks just take us, because what came next was even harder. And I just read that part. It was the end of the last chapter where Jake is saying, like, I did it. I got through this. It was so hard. And he's a little bit resentful because he's like, he's able to understand that, wow, the jocks that used to bully me in school, like, made me tougher and they prepared me for this. But then it creates that scary thought of, okay, well, what's this preparing me for then? Because that just means something even worse is coming. And it's just so true. And it's like, as you get old, you can see that. And I think, what is it? Like, trials can build endurance in our faith. That's why we should be thankful for hard things, because we can see how God brings us through them. So that hopefully, I'm hoping that someday I get to the point where when that hardship arrives, the immediate reaction is, I know you have this, Lord, rather than my normal, what is going on?
Yes.
But so another question I have is, and you kind of mentioned Hatchet, and your love for stories in general. And we've talked about this, Janelle, in the past, especially in the best kind of stories, the difference between Tolkien and Lewis and the way they handled wanting to present the gospel truth. Tolkien, obviously, much more subtly, and Lewis wanted to do it in direct allegory. Do you have favorite stories that inspire stories of your own, or do you have favorite kinds of stories, whether it be movies or music or books that when you talk about at the start, all of my questions are like 1,000-part questions. Sorry.
He's noticed
so many things. Yeah. Like, oh, okay. Like, just give me one question. But you mentioned at the start, talking about, Hatchet and talking about different stories and wanting to write a story that you wanted to read, which I love. You hear actors all the time talk about, well, I don't watch my movie. Well, I just think that's ridiculous. Like, why are you creating if it's not something that you love? But are there stories that inspire that outside of your own experience?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, it's hard to like put a finger down on what genre that is, because like the thing that I think really inspires me is like beyond genre, beyond media as well, like one specific media as well too, and it's just that like sense of like wonder and adventure. And, like, I just like, for example, the back cover of my book, I think captures what I love about stories. It says Jake is about to embark on a perilous adventure through an alien wilderness filled with hidden wonders and hazards. It's like, oh my gosh, there's so much to explore there. Like, and then you see the alien ruins. They're like, what is on this planet? So
there's like
I love survival stories. Sorry, what?
And there's the red moon,
planet
thing on the cover.
Yeah.
Like, this is not normal.
So like it's tricky because like there'll be wilderness survival books that it's like that will like kind of scratch that itch for me, if you want to call it that, or more just like touch on that passion. But what I've learned is there's a lot of wilderness survival books where it's like they know what they're doing, they know how to do it, and so they just do it. And so there's not really a sense of like discovery there. It's just like I've in preparing to write this book, I wanted to read several books about alien planets, people on these alien planets. And like every single time was like, people are on these alien planets and they already know what everything does and how to utilize it. And it's like, that's like, everything's known. Like, even if it's unknown to me, it's known to them. And that like kind of ruins it for me a little bit, which is why I really liked Hatchet, because he's like, what do I do? And he's just like trying things out. And why, I mean, I really love my book too, is because he's like, what are these animals? What are these things to eat? You know, like beetle fruit, like what is this thing? You know? So I just really love those things where it's like stepping out into something that you just don't know. You know, and probably one of the reasons why The Martian like really like hit me as well too is it's just like what is there? So if you guys have any movie or book recommendations where it is exactly that, like I am all ears, because I cannot find enough of that. And honestly, probably where I found more of that is in like some board games that I've been finding. There's Red Raven Games. Sorry, this is a random promo for Red Raven.
We love board games.
But this guy Ryan Lockett, he does these adventure board games, and it's just so fun because it feels like you're like stepping into this world that you have no idea what's going on, and you're just like get to discover the world as you're going through, and you do these different adventures, and then you die and you do it all over again, you know. So anyways,
what are these games? What are they called?
So Red Raven Games, you can check it out. But he has one that's currently in Game Fund. It'll end in 10 days. Probably by the time that this launches, it'll end. But it's called Song of Silveranth, and I just bought it last night, actually. But it's not going to deliver until summer of 2027. So I'm like,
oh man.
But he has another one, Sleeping Gods, and that's an open world game, which if you have kids like between the ages of like 8 and, well, I guess older than 8, like it's a fun cooperative game where it's a little complicated, which is why I like this new one, because it seems a lot more simple. But it's just fun to be able to go and explore this world. Like, you don't know what monsters there are. You don't know what's going to happen when you make this decision. You're just trying the best you can to like do something good that's not going to put you all in danger. And so it's just fun. And that's what I really like. Just like stepping into something that's totally unknown and exploring it. Like, this might tell you a lot about like what I care about. It's like, I don't care about the trail because everyone's on the trail. You know, like what I want to do is I want to step off the trail, just go wandering through these hills, these mountains. Like, if I find a cave, like how many people know about this cave? Or like, oh, I find this crazy rock formation. I don't know. It's like, I just want to know every little nook and cranny about this mountain. Like, when I moved to Albuquerque, the Sandia Mountains are there, and they're really cool mountains. And like, one of my dreams was like, I just want to like wander all over those mountains. Like, yeah, sure, they got trails to these cool lookouts, but like, I just want to find these weird hidden places that nobody ever knows about. And so some of the places I found was like, there's this like valley between like these rocks. So the whole west side of the Sandia is like sloped like that, pretty like straight and flat like that. But then there's this like valley between it with like all these aspens growing in this little valley, and it felt like a little microcosm of like nature there, like locked between these two like 30-foot tall cliffs, just this little aspen grove. Or another spot, I was just walking along and I saw these mountain lion prints like chasing after these deer. I was like, well, that's pretty sweet. They also have a few plane crashes in those mountains, and those are fun to explore too, but they all have trails going to them.
Well, I'm super excited because reading your book, listening to your book, I had this thought, and I'm so happy that I was right. I was like, this guy and my brother are like kindred spirits. So Grant, I think you gotta invite Philip to come hunting with you, because Grant is exactly that way. So we went out to visit them. They live out in Brewster, Washington, so kind of on the east side of the Cascade Mountains, and it's just beautiful wilderness. It's incredible. The view from his house is to die for. But we went out there in March, and he was like, we're going to go snowshoeing. And so my husband and I and Grant and his wife, Angelina, were like, okay, so we go out, we rent snowshoes, and we strap them on, and we start up this trail, and it's a beautifully groomed trail. And we're like literally 4 steps up the trail, and Grant's like, that's it, we're done. And I was like, what do you mean we're done? And he goes, just barreling off the trail, just straight up the mountain into like this totally untouched, pristine wilderness. And we just climbed the mountain because we could. It was there. And we got to the top and we ate our peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and we took off our snowshoes and realized that the snow was like 10 feet deep up there. And we were like, oh God, the snowshoes are actually doing something for us. But he was like, this trail is for everybody else. we are not following it. So
yeah, no, I love that. And I think one of the things that I'm loving so far about this book is the sense of, well, like you said, a sense of wonder. It kind of reminded me a little bit of how I felt when I read, I think it's Out of the Silent Planet, where it's just it's a world that you almost can't describe in human terms. But I love how Jake does it to where it's like, it reminds me like Revelation, where, well, it looks like a deer, so it's a scale deer, or, the balloon fruit, or like he's relating it to something we can understand, but it's leaving it up to our imagination to really fill it in, because it's not anything that we've ever seen before. And it's the fact that it doesn't have like its scientific name, or like you said, like somebody already knows what this is so fun and exciting to discover. And I agree. Janelle, I don't know if I told you the story, but we went hunting one time in Idaho and we spent so much time just trying to get away from everybody. So you go up the Snake River and on a jet boat for like an hour, and then you climb a mountain and you hike for 2 or 3 days. And so we're way back in there. And that was, to me, the exciting part. Like, I'm not even really there for the hunting aspect, more just I want to get somewhere where nobody is. And so we're out there, we're like 3 days into this, and we're sitting on this hill looking out, and all you can see is wilderness. And all of a sudden, like out of the trees comes this guy with a day pack. And it totally ruined it, because I was like, what? he could get here? And so I was like, oh, well, this place is not as cool as I thought it was. So
he probably had a backpacking like campsite just down the hill.
He probably did.
Yeah.
But but I totally agree. It's like, you see, Instagram has kind of ruined a lot of the magical places in a way, to where it's like, oh, like, yeah, that place looks awesome. It's kind of like when we went to Niagara Falls. And we showed up after you see all these great photos, and you show up and there's a McDonald's right next to it. And you're like, oh, well, it takes a little bit of the mystery.
Don't go to the pyramids then.
No,
yeah, sure.
Well,
I am
right
there.
So of all of like 35 countries, maybe more now, that you've been to?
38 now, yeah.
Really? What, just from an adventure or story side, like, what is the favorite place that you've been to? Where it's like, if someone said, hey, you can go visit one place that you've been to already. Petra, really? Wow. That's not a place that
absolutely
like
Petra.
Why?
So okay. The pyramids, they're huge. They're rocks. You can go inside them, which is cool. I call it a once in a lifetime experience going inside them, because it's like you only want to do it once in your life. After you've done it the first time, you're like, well, I've already done it. So now what's it doing it a second time? I went a second time with a group. The first time I went to the pyramids, it was in like February. And we went down into the pyramids, and it was hot and it was sweaty and it was muggy and it kind of stunk and close quarters, which I don't mind that. I explore storm drains. This is like 4,000-year-old storm drains in a sense. But then we went back in August, and like, I'm not going to do it. It was already hot in February. I'm not going to do this in August. And so they did it, and they all came back super like drenched in sweat, and they're like, yep, it's a once in a lifetime experience. But Petra, man, like, you can see all of Cairo from like the pyramids, like all the movies that like make it sound like it's out in the middle of the desert. Like, yeah, there's desert further out, like to the west, but like to the east, there's city right there. Like,
yeah,
there's a reason why, like, you're not going to go out into the middle of the desert and build pyramids, but like, you're going to build them right by the city. But Petra is a city. Like, that's what it is. And like, a lot of it does feel kind of ruined because there's a lot of tourists, because there are kind of still some people living there, I think. I don't know. But it's a city, which means there's so many parts of it that people don't go.
Really?
Like, you could go, like, the pyramids, you can walk around all, like, I think there's like 5 pyramids in like the Great Pyramids of Giza place. You can walk around all 5 of them in like the matter of like 3 hours. You'll be sweaty and hot, but you could. Whereas like Petra, like, you could probably spend 4 days there and still not see every single little building carved into the canyon walls, because it's so cool. There's like, it's all slot canyons in a sense. I don't know if you know what those are from like Utah.
Yeah.
But that's what I would compare it the most to. Like, Moab is almost like what this is, except there's like 2,000-year-old like dwellings carved everywhere into these rocks. Like there's a really big and famous ones that everyone goes to, like the treasury, the monastery, you know, like all these cool places, and they're super cool and impressive, but that's where all the tourists are. But I like stepping outside of those and just going down these little side channels where it's like a little slot canyon like this, and there's a house there, house there, house there, house there, house there, and you're just walking down. It's like, this is what used to be a street way back in the day, and there will be no one around you because it's not one of the hot places. And so like every single time I go there, I get to explore a completely new place. Like the last time I went there, I got to explore a like a Byzantine church. I was like, I didn't know this was here. Like, that's pretty crazy. Okay. Another time I like went up and like got this like cliff down view of the treasury, which was really cool. And you go up this really old road, and we saw like maybe 4 or 5 people on that road. Like it's like a mile and a half long, thousands of stairs, you know, it was really tiring, but like no one was really there on that road. And like this was a road that they built 2,000 years ago. And yes, we had to maintain it a little bit because of erosion, but it's just like this is the road that they would have walked on back then. And it just feels so serene and silent. Like, anyways, so definitely go to Petra if you can. You know, like I've been to the Areopagus. What is it in Athens? The big temple up on the hill there.
Oh yeah, okay.
I think
I know what you're talking about.
Acropolis, Areopagus.
Oh, the Acropolis.
Yeah, something like that.
I don't remember.
That one's cool because it's so old, but like there's thousands of people there, you know, and you're never by yourself. And then you look out, and then there's a city right down below you from every side. And like, yeah, they're all cool. They're all really cool. But like, if you had to choose one, especially for you, Grant, if you're like looking for this wonder and adventure, spend 3 days at Petra.
Really?
You can just wander it and wander it and wander it and wander and just like imagine what life was like back then. And unfortunately, tons of the buildings, like all the carved in rock buildings, like they're basically all still there. Like erosion's done a number to them, but you can go in like pretty much all of them because no one cares. There's thousands of these.
Oh my goodness.
You know, you can just go in, and a lot of them smell like pee, unfortunately, but you can still go in them. You know, and the further
I don't know. This isn't sounding.
No, but does this inform any, like when Jake is, because it sounds very much like when Jake is exploring these ruins, does any of that inform, and when you talked about going to the pyramids but it being super hot, when Jake says, I hate hiking in the heat, how much of you do you pour into Jake, or is he just someone totally separate from you?
You know, it's impossible to not write yourself into a character. Or no, it's impossible to not write your character around you. Like everything that I think of to describe something is obviously coming from me. So yeah, but I do hate the heat. You know, I lived in Albuquerque for 2 years, which is why Jake comes from Albuquerque, and it's just like, it's like so hot. Like I'd way rather like 20 degrees than 100 degrees. Like I'd take that any day. So
yes,
yeah, things like that definitely impact it. But I don't know if Petra so much impacted him exploring these alien ruins. Like a lot of, and this is normally with my books, I like plot it all out like chapter by chapter by chapter, but like with this book I was like, I can't plot this out. Like I need to discover this planet as he does. And so there'd be times where it's like he needs something to eat. Shoot, what is he gonna eat? Like okay, this thing, oh, that's weird. It's cool. Nice.
That's cool. That's awesome. What Janelle, well, maybe not the first book you wrote, but the first book you published, we were in high school. I was in high school. You were in college, and came home for the summer. And so my dad's like, you know, if you want to write, you got to write. And so the first book she would write 10 pages or so at a time, and each night we'd read them as a family. And it was funny because we'd get to the end of those 10 pages and we'd be like, oh, what happens next? Like, we need to know. And Janelle was like, I need to know too. I have no idea.
No clue.
We're all on so that's cool. Like I was interested in that, what your process is. And because sometimes it's very detailed, and sometimes, like you said, you're on the adventure as well, which is really cool.
And I would have ideas of like, okay, this is where it's going to end up at the end.
Right.
Janelle knows exactly what I'm talking about. Like, this is what I'm building towards. You know, like that thing that you talked about, like the bullies prepared me for this, but what is this preparing me for? Is like, okay, I knew what was coming. I didn't know quite how we'd get there
Yeah.
or quite how he'd accomplish it, but like I knew where we would end up at the end. But there's a lot of things throughout it all that's like, what? I don't know. Like, and I had to cut out a few chapters because like this isn't necessary right now. Like,
Yep.
so anyways, but
Yeah.
Will it,
I like
so I
it.
had to go back and write a few more chapters. Like, for example, the city at the base of the portal was not in the first like 3 drafts of this book.
oh, seriously?
Nice.
That was something I had to go back through and add because I was thinking like, that would be a really cool reveal later on to be like,
Right.
yeah, there actually are aliens. And it's like, but I want that on the cover so bad. And is that really a big reveal that there's like alien life? Like the big question ultimately is like, where are they? So
Yeah.
or
big
are they
question-
still there?
The big question for me is because whenever, especially like a book like this, where it's like I'm halfway through it and I'm excited to get to the end, but there's also that little bit of it's like, I don't want it to end. I don't want it to be over. And maybe this is something you can't say yet or not. I'm not sure. Or maybe it's too early in the process, but is there going to be more from the world of Jake Rogers coming? Like, do you have other stories in your mind?
I loved exploring this world with Jake. It was so fun. And I never want to be the kind of person that writes a sequel because the first book did well or something. Like I only want to do something that I feel like is deserving of a book. So that said, I can see my next project you'll really like. Because I mean,
Wow,
that's
what a
me.
tease.
That's what I like to write. I like to write like discovering, like I have several other books that is a lot like that,
Really?
and they're not published yet,
Well, you have them in the works, or
I have another book that I've sent to several publishers. They've all rejected it. So now it's like, and I don't get what publishers are trying to pick, because obviously Jake Rogers' Planet is good since it's like a finalist in the Christy Awards, like,
right.
you don't get there if your book isn't like at least of good quality.
Right.
So anyways, I just think for some reason publishers aren't interested in what I write. I don't know why. Anyways, so I have another book that is very much so like that. I mean, that's what I love. I love just that exploring, that adventure. That's like my mission statement, encouraging believers to adventurous and Christ-filled lives through wild steps of faith. So it's like, that's going to be in everything I write. Now, what will that look like? I have another book series that I finished the first book. It's going to be a 4-book series, and it kind of follows the idea of like, what would it look like if there was persecution for Christians in the U.S.? Like, what do you do? Do you hide? Do you fight? Do you keep sharing the gospel? Like, how does that all play out? And so, again, it's a boy who's discovering all this. Like, he's never really heard of Christians before, other than that they're crazy, and then he gets sucked into this world, and he starts discovering like, oh, what is this all about? Like, how do I, like, what's right, what's wrong, all these different things. Or I have another book where it kind of starts off a lot like Jake Rogers' Planet, where he like suddenly finds himself in this other realm kind of thing, and he's like, how did I get here? Like, what do I do? How do I get back? And I can't go more into detail on that, but anyways, yeah. So my next book you'll be very pleased with. So for all of you listening, if you like Jake Rogers' Planet, well, first of all, maybe check out Jake Rogers' Planet. But if you like it, sign up for my email list so that you can be notified on my next project. Because this time next year, I will have another book out.
Right.
That's exciting.
How does someone sign up for your email list?
You say, Philip, sign me up for your email list. And I say, what's your email? Let's see. The easiest way to sign up for my email list.
You have a link. We can
It's
put it
on
in the
your-
show notes.
Yeah.
If you email
I
it.
think I
Agree.
do have a link.
Put it in the link
I haven't
down
done
below.
that in a little while.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I'll get
Yeah.
you guys a link for that.
Yeah. Email us like your Instagram and your
Yeah. But I'll be announcing
website.
my next book in sometime in February.
Super cool.
And then I'll do a Kickstarter for my next book in April, and then it'll come out this time next year. And it's
Fantastic.
I don't quite know where it's going. Kind of like with Jake Rogers' Planet, but one of the things that God's really like encouraged me with is like, hey, like just start writing. You don't know where it's going, but just start writing. And I'm so glad I did, because I was like paralyzed for a little while. Like, what do I even do? And now that I'm like more than halfway done writing, it's like This is good. Thank you,
Yeah.
God, for getting me going on this.
Could you share a little bit? It could be brief or as long as you want. Speaking more towards like the author or creative side, I think talking with young people now there's so much stuff out there that I think it's very easy to maybe even you feel this way, Joe. Maybe even you feel this way sometimes. It's like does the world even need my story? Or there's so many authors. Like I can see authors that aren't as good as me, but I see a lot that are better than me. I think of this with filmmaking. Like, what can I add to this? Like, what would you say to an author or a person who has this call, but they're having all of those doubts? What would you say to them?
Yeah, good question. I would say check your heart. Check your heart and seek God, because I think a lot of people write because they want to be popular. I don't know if it's so much writing, but maybe it's like pursuing a sport or trying to become an actor. Like they do it to become famous. And I mean, I won't be afraid to admit that that's probably where I started. And there's probably still a little bit of that I still have to keep fighting against, but definitely check your heart. Be honest with yourself. Like, why do I want this? Do you want it because it's fun? Great. Cool. Do it because it's fun. There's nothing wrong with that. God created you a certain way to like enjoy certain things. So enjoy those. Like God wanted us to enjoy this planet. Are you doing it because you feel like there's an important mission behind it? Awesome. Like, do not ever give up on that. You might not know what it'll look like. You might not know how it'll transform. Like there could be a day where I stop writing fiction and start doing board games. I don't know. I don't think that that'll ever happen. I can't see that happening, but like I do love both, and I really like the idea of maybe turning adventures into board games. I don't know. Or maybe it'll turn into a movie and I end up becoming a screenwriter one day. I don't know what God has in my future. All that I do know is this is the calling you set me on right now. And regardless of how difficult it gets, I'm going to keep pressing forward with that. And so for all of you listening, like it might be years. And if you're not okay with that, check your heart. If you are okay with that, that's a pretty good sign that you're in it for the right reason. But look at Abraham. God called him about when he was 75 to go into this new land and that God would make it a new nation through him. 75 years old and he didn't have a child. And then he had to wait another 25 years before he had that child. And then God asked him to sacrifice that child. It's like, it might be a long journey. Or David, likely God anointed him king over Israel when he was like 14 to 16 years old. And then huge success, defeated Goliath. Awesome. Gets brought into the king's court. And then a few years later is now being hunted by the king. He has to go and live as a fugitive in a neighboring nation because he can't even like live in his own country. Like, what are you doing, God? And for 15 years that was his life. But God worked through that whole process. For me, felt called to do this. Years and years later, no growth, no steps. And, like now I'm way further than I ever was before. I'm still maybe a long ways from where I'd like to be, but like love the journey. It's super fun. So if you're not willing to wait and be patient, then ask yourself why you're in this. Are you in it for you, or are you in it to inspire and encourage others? If you're in it just for the fun, that's a wonderful thing too. Just enjoy it. Enjoy the process. Don't be so focused on the end goal. But I would also encourage all of you listening, like genuinely sit down and ask God, what do you want me to do? Of course, like you do need to be faithful in God's general calling. Go share the gospel with your friends, with your neighbors, with your classmates. And that is a scary thing to do. But I will challenge you, if you're unwilling to take that wild step of faith later on in whatever journey you feel like God might be calling you to do, you probably won't have the courage to take those steps of faith, because this is God's training ground for you. So start being faithful now. Again, quick promo, like you can check this out. This can help you a lot, or just email me. You can email me. I love talking to people.
Beautiful.
And so, just check your heart with all of that, because there's a lot of bad reasons why people want to write. I mean, some maybe aren't bad, but a lot of, I'll call it fluff reasons. So ask why you're really in this. And if you're really in it to serve and glorify God, never give up and write what you feel God's calling you to write, because you don't know where you're going to be. You might have several books that will never see the light of day. That might be the case. And you need to be okay with writing because you love God and because you love to write, not because you want to be recognized, because very likely it will be years until you start getting recognized. I have, let me count real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 books that no one will ever read. Full length books. And maybe one day those things will inspire different books, but like it was all part of the journey. I loved writing it. A few people did read it. My mom's probably my biggest fan. Thank you, moms. And I'm so glad that you, Grant, supported your sister Janelle in writing, because I didn't have that so much when I was younger. But like, write, for all you listening, write because you love God, and write because you love to write, and just keep being humble before him, because you don't know what God will do with it. And also, here's this is actually a chapter in my Discovering God's Calling book. Like, set your definition of success as faithfulness. Because if that's your success, you'll never fail.
Absolutely.
As long as you're faithful. But that's something you have control over. You don't have control over who's going to read your book and who's going to like it. But if you're faithful and you define success as simply being faithful to do what God's calling you to do, your book is going to be a success no matter what happens. And then maybe over and above that, you'll get to see people's lives be transformed. You'll get to see people be really impacted by it. Like you don't know, but set your definition of success as being faithful, because that's ultimately what God desires, like just to walk with you through this whole process.
Yeah. Wow.
That's really cool.
Beautiful. That's beautiful. Jake Rogers' Planet by Philip Wilder. Philip, if you could just answer 2 more questions. You just share briefly the heart behind this book and who is your intended audience. Who is this book for?
Yes. My desire with all my writing is to help young guys see that God wants to call you on a grand adventure. Now, as Janelle and even as you guys have mentioned it, and as others have mentioned it, like, this book can impact anyone. It's not just for younger guys, but I specifically had in mind like guys ages like 10 to 14 that I really wanted to write this for. And so that's why I included Minecraft in it. So if you're a parent listening right now, tell your son it has Minecraft in it. That's like magic. I like Minecraft, but clearly not as much as these young guys do, because that's one of my biggest selling points for these young guys, is that he mentions Minecraft. But the heart behind this book is, we as a ministry, we train people in evangelism and discipleship. And I love that. It's so awesome. But the only people who will get our training are people who want to be trained in evangelism and discipleship. And so kind of my like nuanced approach to writing is, how do I get people interested in evangelism and discipleship? And that's where my books come in. Like, I want to get people excited to follow God through evangelism, through discipleship, the Great Commission, ultimately. And that starts with this book of simply not letting fear tell you what you can or cannot do. Like, that's what this whole book is. I don't want to say arranged around, but like, that's my mission kind of for this book, is to help people see that if God is calling you to do something, maybe it's sharing your faith with your neighbor or coworker or friend or family member, that's oftentimes the scariest. Do not be afraid. Trust God. And you might not be certain whether or not God's calling you to do that, which is oftentimes what Jake is encountering here through this. But the first step is, don't be afraid. Trust God. God's right there with you. He's going to work and move through all of this. Even if it's through, like, if Jake can learn to not be afraid on an alien planet all by himself, wondering if he'll ever see another human again, we can learn to trust God to share the gospel with people we care about. That's kind of like the main idea behind this. My future books kind of build further on that. Like, I kind of think of it as like a discipleship curriculum, like Undercover. So if you're not a parent listening to this right now, don't listen to what I'm about to say. Do not think of this as a discipleship curriculum at all. But if you're a parent, I hope this can really help disciple your children. to follow God in what God's calling them to do. And so the first step is not letting fear hinder us, learning to trust God despite our fear. And then in February, I'll announce the next book that I have planned and kind of the vision that I have behind it, which is ultimately just start walking. You might not know where God's calling you to go or what to do, but you likely know the first step. It's to take that step, and then God will give you the next step, and then you take that step. Or if you do know what God's calling you to do, but have no idea how to get there, just start walking. Yeah, you'll probably make mistakes. You probably will end up in a crazy spot, but like, you know what? It's better than not making any progress. I've heard someone say that, oh, it's easier to turn a car that's moving than it is to turn a car that's standing still. Like just with the steering wheel. So that's probably not the best analogy, but like follow God. If there's something scary that God's calling you to do, or if there's something scary in your life that lines up with what God might want you to do, try it. Like if the risks are like, oh, they might make fun of me, ignore that fear. Just try it. Like the worst thing that could happen is they make fun of you. The best thing that could happen is like they'll spend an eternity with Christ with you, which is insane and so cool that we get to be a part of that journey. Yeah. Anyways, another long answer to a short question, but that's my heart behind it.
That's all right. He asks long questions too.
Well, and having, my 4 kids, like everything you just said, I want that poured into their souls. So I'm very excited to share this book with them. Yeah. And it's awesome for them to hear it from someone else, from the book they're reading, from the book that we're reading together.
Well, I think that's part of what C.S. Lewis kind of called sneaking past watchful dragons, right? The reason we use our stories as Christian creators especially is because, again, you can kind of sneak past the watchful dragons of the world or of, preconceived notions of, I don't want to hear a Christian book because it's going to be cheesy or whatever. But I think there is that, like, you can tell a story, like you were talking about earlier. You can tell a story. You can change a heart. You can make somebody see something from a different perspective. So whether that's sneaking past watchful dragons, or as DJ Edwardson likes to call it, the genre of imagination. You were asking for like recommendations earlier. I think you would love his sci-fi series, DJ Edwardson's Chrono Trace series. It's kind of like that, where the character doesn't know, like he wakes up and he has no idea where he is and he has no idea how this world works. And I think it would resonate with you. But yeah, I think that's, when you were talking about having a hard time like picking a genre, it's what you described very much sounded like what he calls the genre of imagination. And you can kind of wherever, like whatever the vehicle is for it, whether it's fantasy or sci-fi or wilderness survival, like that imagination, that wonder. Well, we have been talking for a very long time, and I know based on the fact that we're all getting along so well that we could talk for many hours more, but I have other things to do, and I'm sure you both have other things to do. So I just want to say thank you so much for joining us on our podcast, Philip, and we'll have some of your links down in the show notes so people can find you more easily, find your book more easily. And we wish you great success at tonight's Christy Awards. And we'll be praying that whatever the result is, that God uses it and uses you and continues to just inspire and motivate you to keep following him and keep writing stories. And to everybody else who's listened or watched this conversation, we just thank you so much for joining us. And we invite you to come back next time and come in out of the storm and join us in the Stormcave. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.